Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the end of our book. I hope you've been enjoying it as much as I have. Chapter 20, in which the sun shines, and we learn what befell the whipping boy, the prince, and everyone else. I hope I get to hear all of your predictions or see them or read them before we start this chapter. Remember to email me or text me and call me if you're not sure how to do that. Standing in the clear sunshine, the prince breathed in the fresh, sweet air. Then he looked at Jemmy squarely in the eyes. "We're going back to the castle." "Not me. Your pa put a price on the head of mine. No, thank you, Prince. I don't fancy doing a jig from the end of a rope." "Where will you hide for the rest of your life? In the sewers? I'd have them searched end to end." Gah, what a fool he'd been to let the prince know his best hiding place. Jemmy was on the verge of running, but where to, and how far would he get? "You said you trusted me," declared the prince, "but I can see you didn't mean it." "I meant it, up to a point." "Then follow me." It was a command. Jemmy swallowed hard and followed. They weren't at the castle gates yet. He'd think of something. What do you think he could think of at this point? He's just a boy. The prince led him back onto the fairgrounds and searched for Betsy and the hot potato man. "You've served your prince nobly," he announced. "What are you talking about, lad?" said Captain Nips. Hot potatoes." "The king has offered a reward for the whipping boy. Here he stands. Turn him in." And Jemmy stood, dumbfounded. He felt betrayed. Gah! Betsy flashed her eyes. "Turn Jemmy in. I'll do no such thing." "I command it." "Who are you to command anything?" I'm Prince Brat." "Ha! Run for it," Jemmy thought. Deeply wounded, he gave the prince a last blazing look. The prince returned a quick, painful wink. "Can you wink?" It befuddled Jemmy for an instant, and then, in a flash, Jemmy saw that for the first time the prince was up to a kindly piece of mischief. "Head to toe, he's Prince Brat," said Jemmy. "Better do what he says, or he'll have you boiled in oil." Jemmy had to wait with Betsy, Petunia, and Captain Nips while the prince was alone with the king. Finally, a pair of golden doors were opened, and the group was ushered into the throne room. The king sat there with his legs crossed and the merest flicker of a smile on his lips. Now, do you think it's a mean smile, a smirk, a confused smile, or a happy smile? What do you think the king is feeling right now, and why? Betsy bowed low, and Captain Nips did the best he could. "The reward is yours," the king announced, and then he turned to the prince. "Well, what about the bear? Came to your rescue, did he?" Excuse me. "Couldn't we give him the title of official dancing bear to your royal majesty, Papa? He'd draw crowds wherever he went." Done. Betsy and Captain Nips were dismissed, with the reward. Jemmy now stood alone. It seemed like hours, while the king gazed at him. He began to feel a noose tightening around his neck. Have you ever felt that way? That you're done for? That you've backed yourself into a corner and you can't get out? "You ought to be whipped." "Yes, my lord." "Prince Horace has caused enough mischief to wear out the hides of a dozen whipping boys. He tells me it's thanks to you that he's back safe and sound." "The king thanks you." Jemmy took a small breath. "You are placed under the prince's protection under one condition. He has sworn to do his homework, all of his lessons, blow out his night candle, and otherwise behave himself." Jemmy's eyes flicked to the prince. He thought. "You must want me for a friend awful bad after promise doing all those things. So help me, if it's a friend you ran off looking for, it's a friend you found." "Dismissed, both of you," said the king. "But do change out of those smelly clothes." Retreating toward the golden doors, the prince beside him, Jemmy felt a sparkle rise to his eyes. You got me off without such as a single whack, he whispered. I didn't want to hear all the yowling and the bellowing. I wouldn't yowl and bellow, but I would, Jemmy. And Jemmy caught the twinkle in his eye. Almost at the doors, they were stopped by the king's voice. One more thing. The king broke into a smile you could warm your hands over. If you decide to run away again, take me with you. In the days that followed, ballad sellers began to cry out new and final verses to the notorious life of Hold-Your-Nose Billy and his partner, Cutwater. An old rat catcher had seen them flee from the sewer, and he'd seen them stow away on a ship raising its sails for a long voyage. It was the convict ship, bound for a speck of an island in the distant waters, the convict island. Did you know that Australia used to be a convict island? I wonder if you can find out more about that and share it with me. I hope you really enjoyed this story as much as I did. It's an old-fashioned story, and there's lots of different kinds of words. For your next task, I'd like you to choose 5 words that you hadn't heard of before this story, and see if I can define them.